Hey everyone. Oh no, we made it. There's always like those few seconds of tension of like, is Instagram going to cooperate or is Instagram not going to cooperate? But thank God on the other side of the world, me in New York City, you in the holy city of Sfas. Welcome. Thank you so, so much for being here. So I'm Sarah Blau and here with Chana Margulies from Geula Wives. And just a little backstory to this live. A couple weeks ago, my mother-in-law told me she read this fantastic new book, which had beautiful art and it was beautiful, and she was so inspired by it over Pesach. And then she tells me, she's like, by the way, Sarah, you wrote a forward to it and it was beautiful. And I'm like, what? I had zero recollection, Hannah. And I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, maybe it sounds familiar that I wrote I didn't remember what I wrote. So my mother-in-law's like, I'm getting you this book as a gift for your birthday. And
Aw.
she did. She gave me the book and it is a work of art. As soon as I read my forward, it came back to me. I was like, oh yes, I remember writing it. And I meant every word because I'd been in touch with Chana. She'd sent me manuscripts. I had, but there was nothing like seeing it um, in real, this beautiful book where you share literally so, from the depth of your heart, such raw pieces about and mentioning things so out in the open, not in a heavy way. Like you mentioned the cancer journey, it didn't feel heavy. You mentioned infertility, didn't feel heavy. I felt humor. I was like laugh crying through that book and appreciating the art. And I'm like, and I sent Hannah an email and I'm like, wow, it was so beautiful. And I also felt like it inspired me because, as I'm reading your journey and I felt so much that you were really like living in the present and that whole process, what happened to you. And I shared with you, I'm like, the truth is my baby is 6. And even though what I'm going through now and what you went through is so, 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 so different, right? The pregnancy losses that I went through is so different. I felt like the book still spoke to me, like just being present, appreciating the 4 beautiful children that I have now, the life I have now. Like it really helped me with that sense of acceptance and peace. And then I just said to you, I'm like, Hannah, let's go live together. Let's talk about this. So that's how this live was born. So I would love to hear from you. Like, tell us a little bit, bring us on your journey a little bit. Um, First from the book, and then we could segue into other things that I know you're passionate about. But tell us about this book and some of the backstory.
Aw. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. I can feel the love all the way from Crown Heights to Spot. And thank you so much for all the love you just shared with me. So I'll share with you a little bit about the book. That was the question. So this is Nurturing Light. And I really wrote it for myself, to be honest. This book, writing it, it wrote me in so many ways. It was this incredible outlet that any pain was a new chapter. Like it kind of like there's this joke with my sisters. It's like I don't want to trigger you because I might end up on a bunch of work. Like it might turn into an article, and really that's what it was for me. Is that I'm gonna make the darkness shine. Is that there's always a gem. Life is always happening for me, and not just for me in terms of like for me personally, but for my soul to speak and my soul to shine. And that's why I wanted the book to have art, because it really called in this creative side of me. And what this book was really this journey of being in such a stuck place where I couldn't connect with other women. I was married, I was in the circles of married women, and yet I'd come home from every single event that I went to in tears or enraged or upset or shut down or like I'm not going out again. And being able to just meet Hashem where I was being invited to meet him in terms of, okay, is this about being really honest with someone or is this about my inner work? And if this is about my inner work, like what part of me have I not invited Hashem into? Is it the shame? Is it the embarrassment? And so it's called Nurturing Light, an anthology about emotional freedom, because that's what I finally realized, that this was not about a baby. And I really felt that from day one of this fertility journey. This is not about a baby. This is about me finding this inner light. This is about me learning to nurture myself. And I don't know where this is going to lead, but that this is really for me.
Wow. Wow. So, we're calling this living in the present. Um, like, what does that look like? to live in what Hashem gives you right now, as opposed to just obsessing about our future hopes and dreams?
Hmm. It's everything. Like to me, that's life. It's just the difference between Gehenna, like hell, and Gan Eden, like heaven on earth. It's the same drive home, but it's like beautiful views versus every car that comes in my lane even closes traffic. Like it's just that difference between, I think for me, like having a relationship with God that exists in the future, like when I reach this point in my life, when I have X, Y, and Z, versus having a relationship with Hashem that's with the Makar HaChaim, the source of life, the living God, like Hashem in this moment. And just even the idea of like neshama, like our soul, it's the same root as nishima, like to breathe. Like the reminder is that simple, that I'm being breathed into existence. It's active, meaning I might check out and I might live 10 years from now. I might live in a horror story of the future of ifs and whats, but in truth, I'm being created right now. And so the truest me, it's in this breath.
So by thinking that Hashem is recreating me right now, that will help me like appreciate the present.
Yeah, it awakens the Yechida. There's this incredible course called Stress Less by Rabbi Adam Stein, and he takes really the Rebbe's like golden sources around living in the moment and compiles them. And what he teaches there is that by just focusing on the fact that Hashem is creating me right now, something from nothing. This is active. Like Hashem is isifying. That awakens the Yechida, which is the essence of the soul, because that speaks to the essence of the soul's, that's its language, that's its culture, that's what awakens it. It's like, yes, that's my truth. And it actually comes down to a point of visceral, where I can actually feel Hashem in my body because by just feeling that I'm existing. And of course, there's an aspect of this, we're not feeling the recreation, which is also a blessing, because the fact that life feels like a movie means we get to have some normalcy, right? One moment feels glued to the next. But what that normalcy can also create is an anxiety of this one big glob and I'm just running through it. Versus if I can take that movie and separate them into those fragments, then I can notice the colors and the smells and my husband and whoever else is in my space, and just actually there's a platform to actually enjoy. Before that, there's not even a premise for like tainug and pleasure or any of those things.
It's amazing. Like you're taking the deepest concept of Chassidus, but like you're living it in such a real way. Like if you learn any mimer of like, right, they take you through Shema and davening and Psukkei de Zimra, and the whole idea of Shema is to focus on God's oneness, right? Kal hamarich be'echad, like to focus on God recreating the world, and it's a whole thing, and it's supposed to lead you to love of God, and it could sound very theoretical, but you're actually saying no. It's so practical. Like thinking about God's oneness, thinking about God recreating me, actually brings me that peace and being present. Like you say it so normally as if this is something that we can all do, but it's actually also inspiring. Like you're saying that the deepest concepts of Hasidus actually are what gives you this ability to be present in the moment. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And it's practical because the Rebbe made it practical. Like I just want to make that distinction, because really what you're saying is true. Like it is like the loftiest of concepts, and there's a Farbrengen where in essence, like it's a whole beautiful story, but in essence what the Rebbe said is that we have an avtacha, we have a promise that when we live in the moment, we'll actually see atzlacha bizman, which means things will actually work out in time. And you actually can live with that reality. And he was empowering us with the story of his father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, that for the Frierdiker Rebbe, whenever he was doing something, he had trained himself. So that was the only thing that existed. And he wasn't telling us a story like a story of tzaddikim, like, oh yeah, good for the Frierdiker Rebbe. He was actually telling it to a group of Israeli Hasidim who are about to catch a flight and we're late, like the most stressful situation ever. These people are trying to catch their flight, telling them that we have this ability to train ourselves, that whatever I'm doing, this is the only thing that exists. But not just in a way of mindfulness, but in a way of, like you're saying, this is the core of Chassidus. That's actually just the truth.
But how does living with the present go with even not stressing or having anxiety about the future, but having bitachon about the future? Like you're still being very futuristic when you're saying like, oh yeah, I trust that God will give me a baby. How does that go with being present, like accepting this is my reality right now? Does it contradict?
So I spent a lot of time reading about what the Rebbe has to say about bitachon. And the first time I read it, I read what I wanted to read. I'm just going to be very honest. And after like having many sobering life experiences, going back and like reading it again, and of course, as I continue to read it, I guess I'll have more perspectives. But what I really came to for myself is that bitachon is bitachon. It's trusting in God's kindness. That's the premise here. It's not my worthiness. It's not my greatness. It's not, am I on my best behavior today? It's Hashem's kindness. So that's a constant. So I can already like take a layer off right there. And it's not about manifesting exactly the thing as I see it. It's revealed good. It's going to be sweet to my palate. Okay. I might need to mature my taste buds, right? There might be like a certain level of like, you know what I mean, being built up through life to appreciate revealed good. But at the end of the day, it's going to be revealed good. And so with that in mind, if I'm living in a space of nothing's good enough and I need to get there in any relationship, in any facet of life, then I won't actually have the vessel to receive it. Even if I get, like I make my vision board and I get that exact thing, I won't have the vessel to receive it. Because if I'm nitpicking all the details and I'm stressed about all of those things, then when I get there, I don't have the vessel. And this is from the Rebbe Rashab. The idea of like the Hasidim like rush the Hahana Niggin, like the preparatory Niggin to get to the mimer. And it's the idea of, he didn't say the mimer afterwards. He didn't give the big show. Why? Because if they couldn't be present to this, couldn't enjoy it. And so knowing that me enjoying this moment, and by enjoying this moment, I really mean like feet on the floor, enjoying it. Like Baruch Hashem, I worked so hard to set up like the Spheres Omer program right now in Gula Wives, like months and months of planning. And I go to every Zoom that one of the coaches are leading, and I just enjoy it. I'm like, this is Hashem's gift to me, that He didn't create this for any reason other than for me to enjoy this moment. In this moment, there's no space for the details. There's no space for, oh, next time I really should include X, Y, and Z. There's just this space of, I want to enjoy it. And what that does is it actually gives me a platform to be more creative and to improve and to grow, right? It actually creates like a stronger future. But so really what I'm trying to say is that by just being present, and I guess the word is makabel, like receiving what's being given to me, that helps me trust that the next moment will be good. Because just like this moment is good, and I can feel it and I can taste it, and it's just good. That gives me trust that the next moment's going to be good, which gives me trust that 5 years from now, things are going to be good. So it's actually preparing me for those blessings that are waiting for me.
But what about like the human side, the messy disappointment side, anxiety? Like, it sounds so beautiful to just live in the moment. Like, what about like actual humanity, feelings? Like, I don't know. How do you get them on board? Like, how do you get present? Like, is it?
I think the desire has to be in place, meaning like, what's my actual desire? Is my desire a perceived outcome? Like, is that the thing for me? Or is my desire a real, raw relationship with Hashem? Because whatever my real desire is, that's going to draw all my emotions. And so if I'm like, no, like, and I think just enough anesthesia, enough hardships, and enough whatever, enough losses, it just got me to this place of like, what do I want? Like, what is it that I actually want? Like, I want Hashem. It comes in many forms, like meaning in terms of many forms of experiences of life. And if that's what I really want, then that's here. So, and it's really, whenever I say Hashem, I just want what you want. And I feel that space inside of me, like, that's not true. I really want what I want. Like, it's just a place of checking in and realizing there's still something I'm holding onto that's hurting me. But when my desires really come to that place of I want what Hashem wants because I want Hashem, then there's emotional space for this. But I think before then, like in my journey, there wasn't, like you're saying, there just isn't space for that because what I want has a form. And until I have that form, it just hurts. Just like, sucker punch.
If I have the thing I want and I'm not willing to let go of it, I'm actually going to end up just living more pain or Gehenna, like you said before. If I want the, it's like paradoxically, like Actually, if I want to experience freedom and joy, I actually have to let go of the thing that I think I need to experience freedom and joy, and then I'll have that freedom and joy.
Yes, because what I want is freedom and joy. And I think it comes in this package. But I actually don't even know yet how many packages it could come in.
Mm.
And it could be there right in front of me.
Mm.
And that they're actually waiting for me. Like my blessings are waiting for me. But it really, I think, first comes from that letting go, like that space of hold, of like I'm willing to let go and I'm willing to receive a different vision that Hashem has for me. But it comes from that bitachon, like you said. If I don't have bitachon, I can't really let go and live in the moment. Like they really are so connected. I need to have that trust of more than I have my wants and needs. Hashem has his wants and needs for me. More than I want revealed good, Hashem has his wildest dreams for me. And when I know that and I trust that, and I can like actually lean back into that, then there's space to live in the moment. So it's actually cool how connected they are.
You know, you mentioned before that this has to do with relationships also, like receiving Hashem's blessings in the present and all that. Like, can you connect that to relationships a little bit? Like, what did you mean?
Yeah, with pleasure. Okay, Friday morning, I had two events that I was supposed to be at the same time.
Oh, nice.
I also had to say Tehillim. And I started like saying my Tehillim and half thinking about both things I need to go to and how they could all work together somehow. And I was like, everyone in the world is fine at both of these events. And I'm saying Tehillim with Hashem. And I want to enjoy it because he didn't ask me to say it for me to like not enjoy this. So I'm going to enjoy the words. I'm going to enjoy the feeling of the words. I'm just going to enjoy it. And it was like really such a freeing moment. That's my relationship with Hashem. And then my husband came in the room and asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. I really, because I wanted the caffeine, but I also wanted the time together because Baruch Hashem, there's going to be a lot of busy day of cooking and Friday prep, and it would be nice to have the time. He's like, do you have 5 minutes? Like, wow, what a question. Like, do I have 5 minutes? Like, everything in my body is screaming, no, I was supposed to leave the house 20 minutes ago. But what my heart really wants is to be able to have the freedom to be like, yeah, I always have 5 minutes for you. Like, Hatzlacha Bisman, like there's success in time. Like there's a blessing. If I just let go, it's going to work. And I just sat down and like enjoyed the, like it had this, the reason he asked for 5 minutes is the tea took 5 minutes to steep. And my husband lives in the moment. So he was not going to rush the tea. And so I ended up having like the most delicious cup of tea and the best 5 minutes together. And I went on my way and everything, like the two events combined into one, it was like, it was just perfect. And, you know, did I miss out on this? Maybe did I miss out on that? I didn't miss out on what's important to me. And I think that being able to receive is so connected to living in the moment. Like receive that connection. Like, you know, sometimes just in the middle of like my husband's talking to me and just being like, I could look in his eyes if I wanted to. Like I could put my phone down for a second, or when I'm in the middle of, I could look up from my computer screen, even though I'm so in the middle of whatever I'm doing. Like just that ability of like, how deeply do I want to receive this moment and receive the love or the attention or just being in the presence of another person? Like,
What do you mean the tension?
no, the attention.
Oh,
Like,
the
how deeply am I going?
tension. I thought you said tension. I'm like, why are we receiving tension?
Yeah, I receive the tension. No, like receive the intention. Like, you know, like it's kind of like with a compliment. Like, you know, like how, you know, my husband walks in and says like the room looks nice. Like how much am I going to enjoy that? Like from 1 to 10, and that's something Hashem can't do for me, right? That's my dalet amos to choose. Like, am I gonna feel it like a 3 because I'm also thinking about this email I forgot to send, you know? Or am I going to notice that's what's happening? Be like, no, I'm gonna feel this like a 7. That's what I could do right now. I'm gonna sit down, enjoy the fact that the room's clean, enjoy the fact that my husband's noticing and wants me to feel good. And then there's the matan Torah of it, you know, like the places I can't reach, like on my own. But by just choosing to be present and trying, I think there's a gift that Hashem deepens the experience.
So it's almost like an actual Avaida. Like it's a holy Avaida, like working on being present.
Yeah, I want to. Sorry, I'll move back to where I have this. But I just want to show it real quick because I didn't say Avoda. I just have to give credit where credit's due. This is Rabbi Adams' course. It's a whole guide. It's all the footnotes. It's such an Avoda, and all the coaches at Guluwise, we all learned it in depth. At first, people were like, what is this thing? And like, I promised you it's relevant. And like 6 weeks later, like they got it. It sounds ethereal. It sounds like whatever. But if I'm not present to, let's say a client's in front of me and I feel like I just need to get to the place of the breakthrough and I'm not present to her frustration or her pain, then I'm not going to have the real empathy that I need to actually feel where she's at in her own right now. And therefore I'm not going to receive like the Ruach HaKodesh, the wisdom, the intuition, the whatever it is that's needed to actually guide. And so being present, it really is, it's a voda, but it's called the present, right? It's a gift.
What does it look like to be present though in pain, like in a relationship that's hurting, for example? Any relationship that's hurting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that in those types of situations, just naturally, dissociate or check out, or like you see a lot of like being on the fence. I need to get out of this. I need something drastic. And so being present is usually the last thing someone wants to do.
Right.
And that's why
like, get me out of here.
Vital. Like what?
No, I said, get me out of here. That's
yeah, exactly. And so I think gratitude is such a grounding space to be in, because someone could be like, oh, why would I want to be present, to my marriage right now? Like, why would I want to be, present to that, or present to, whatever's going on for someone? But actually that gratitude is an invitation, because I've seen it so many times of someone saying there's nothing to be grateful for. And you say, I challenge you, just 3 things. Just 3 things. And if someone's willing to, there's always 3 things to be grateful for. And I've done this with myself so many times. That's why, like, I wouldn't ask someone to do what I don't think is actually possible or not kind. And like, I've done it so many times, like crying, losses, done, devastated. And just that question of, other than what I'm thinking and believing, am I okay? And the answer, I really want it to be no. Like, I've wanted it to be no so many times. And the answer is always yes. Like, other than what I'm thinking and believing, am I okay? Well, yeah, I have 10 fingers, thank God, and I can still breathe, checking, and do you know what I mean? Like, there's always, and I can still talk to Hashem if I wanted to, and there are people who care about me if I, care to pick up the phone, and I could just go on a walk right now and pretend to be someone else and, like, forget who I am and just walk around the block. Like, there always is that, and I think gratitude, which is really hakar satov, right? Recognizing the good. It's kind of a pathway back into the present.
So interesting the way you say, other than what I'm thinking and feeling, because a lot of this is just our experience. I'm feeling all these feelings. I'm thinking, like, other than that, like, well, there actually is a whole world other than what I'm thinking and feeling right now. And we're in a feeling of anything, of rage, of disappointment. It's like that seems to be like everything. You mean there's other things going on besides for my limited reality? So what is your Geula Wives group? It also sounds very spiritual. What is it?
Thank you for asking. So Geula Wives is a community of Jewish women. Thank God we have 32 women from around the world, plus 17 coaches. We gather weekly on Zoom, and we support each other in our visions for our marriage. It's all about shalom bayis, and it's really about doing the avoda together. Meaning, we all know gratitude's an important thing, but I might forget for years, or at least for weeks, or I already thanked him for that. But actually having community, that this week we're focusing on gratitude, everyone, and getting to the chassidus, getting into the depths of why is this so important. And even if I'm a grateful person, where can I expand this? And having the energy this whole week, we're focusing on it, and connecting. We have an online platform where we connect, and we write our wins, we write our gratitude lists, and our Geula moments, as we call them throughout the week.
Yeah, why do you call them Geula moments? What does that mean to you?
Well, Geula is really this idea of emotional freedom. I mean, it's collective, a base of Mikdash, like it's very real, and it also is within our minds and hearts. And so Geula is not this thing that we're victims to or waiting for one day. It's actually a felt experience that we can welcome ourselves into. Geula is very much a quantum state. It's here if I choose to be in it. And so the idea is that it's called Geula Wives because the premise is that every marriage is whole and every marriage has God in it. Every marriage went under a chuppah, right? Like Hashem, the Shekhinah, is in that marriage. And so we don't need to create a great relationship. We need to reveal what's there. And that's the idea of Geula. Geula is not this imposed reality where God's going to plop a new world on top of our messy, sad world. No, it's actually the parts of this world that we really rather didn't exist are actually going to be revealed within them, that Hashem was within them the entire time. And that's the idea of the Aleph, that redemption and exile. In Hebrew, it's the same word, except one difference is that Aleph. The letter Aleph, which is the God consciousness, is what makes that difference between redemption and exile. And so really knowing that every woman has that power to reveal that Aleph in her marriage. She can show up with vulnerability. She can show up with gratitude. She can speak, use her power of speech, and illuminate all the good qualities in her husband, even if she doesn't believe they're there. She can use that power of Emor, of speaking and drawing forth his soul powers, knowing that like all of that good is there, and just tapping into it. And so what we do is we meet once a week on Zoom, and we celebrate and we share wins. And one woman receives coaching. It's very vulnerable, very powerful, very real. And then we all share, whoever wants to share what they took from that. And it's not like every woman's asked, like, go inside. Because whatever another woman's challenge is in her marriage, I have it also, right? Whatever she's going through, I'm going through in a different dimension, right? Maybe it's bigger, maybe it's smaller, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it has very different wrappings. But when I get to the essence of what it really is, like what is that pain, I can relate. And so watching that woman bravely have her breakthrough, I get to have that breakthrough also. As a coach or as a participant, it really either way.
So, do you think that a lot of the principles that you work on in terms of, let's say, gratitude or whatever, like, do you think they could apply in all relationships, like friends, family, colleagues, bosses, like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the beautiful things is that like Geula is an all-encompassing reality. So I'm not just going to fill up in my marriage and it's not going to not affect my work life. Of course it will, and of course it like, so, people have wins. Not everyone's part of our community is married. A lot of people, like there are a significant number of women who just want to be practicing these skills, and either, Geula wives in training, like this is what they want for their next marriage. But I wouldn't just say in training, like they're just living that state of what it means to be a Geula wife, to be a Geula woman, to live with these skills. And I really do try to, I even use them with cab drivers, like I used it with this lady at like a store. It was always so rude. I'm like, what is going on with this lady? Like, is this fun for her? Like, does she realize how unpleasant it is to come into the store? And after years of this, I'm like, I'm just going to try a skill on her. I'm just going to trust that she is infinitely patient. She's so patient. I just thought it to myself 3 times before I went into the store. Got into that place, like, she's so patient. And I went in, I started finding evidence. Oh, wow, like I always do this, thing. I take the cart from the front that annoys her instead of the back. She didn't say anything this time. She's so patient. Like, and I just kept on seeing it. She ended up, like, she couldn't stop complimenting what I was wearing. She never, like, talked to me before, like, she was just so happy. She schmoozed. She actually, this woman has no patience, actually schmoozed with me. I'm like, she was always patient. I just wasn't being present to that quality of her. And really, I think that is what's so cool about these skills. And this avoda, this work, is that I'm so not a victim to how anyone shows up. Like, if someone could show up completely impatient, I get to choose that I focus on that patient aspect of them. And why is it there? Because God's there. Like, every single person has a neshama, and so they have all good qualities inside of them. It might be this mida or it might be this mida, but I get to draw that out.
So let's say someone is very critical and you feel like they're constantly throwing arrows at you. How would you tackle that?
Yeah, ouch. First put on some armor, take out some thorns. I mean, it's if I'm focusing on the fact that this person's critical, I mean, it depends on the relationship. But let's say, a wife really feels like her husband's just so critical of her, which can be so painful, especially when that's the person you want to see you in such a high esteem. And so just thinking, okay, well, what is the desired experience? What do I really want? Because if I'm just thinking, oh, he's so critical, that's just where my consciousness is being trained to go over so many times. And so what do I want? I want to experience, not that he's critical, I want to experience that he always sees the good in me. And that might feel like a blatant lie at first. It might feel like, how is that true? When did I experience that ever? But just knowing that that's even possible, and won't go into it now, but this is from a Sikha in Parshas Emor, where the Rebbe explains to us how to use our speech to illuminate good qualities in everyone, and how it's actually the mitzvah of dan lechaf zchut, to make them a zchut, a zach, a merit, to actually make every person shine through our words. And so I might start noticing, oh, well, he didn't, notice that I put, the kids' lunch boxes like this in their nice way. Or he didn't criticize me on this, so he probably thought I did a good job. And just by collecting this evidence, and next thing you know, there's a big compliment of like, thanks for being such an Ashes Chayil. And it's like, where did that come from? But actually by seeing that good and maybe even taking that risk of saying out loud, like, thank you for always seeing the good in me, and not seeing him as a critical person, it expedites that entire process. And just when I see, this is what I mean by Google as a quantum state, it's totally a choice. A person could be in Gullus, they could be in exile, and they would be right. Right? My husband's so critical, this is so hard, and this is so unfair, and I'm not going to argue with them. You're right. Like, that's one reality. Or I choose to step into Gula. I choose to trust that my husband sees the good in me. I choose not to see him as a critical person, because that's critical when I have that thought. And I choose to just count the evidence and focus on that. And they're in Geula. So it really is a choose your own adventure. And that's just where we're in history.
Oh my gosh, choose your own adventure. Like those books where you get to choose the ending. It's such a great masha. Like, choose. This is what's happening. So like, but isn't that almost like a little arrogant to think that like you could control the narrative and like because of you could change other people?
Maybe, but it's great. I think it's maybe a healthy ego. I think it's just knowing that I am the common denominator in my relationships. Like, I am wherever I go. There's no other, you know what I mean? Like, Hashem places in such a reality that every person is such an island. Like, there's only me in here. I could talk to another person. They could enter my world. But at the end of the day, if I'm not setting the tone, like a chassid maknas sviva, like a chassid creates an environment. If I'm not creating an environment, right? If I say, I just don't have critical people in my space. Like,
but
so.
It's not me.
And you're totally right. And every part of me that screams that is totally right. And so it's totally justified and totally true. This is a choice, right? No one has to do this work. This is what I really feel the Rebbe was inviting us into, and also giving us Nesinas Koach to do, is to choose, right? We're the last generation of Galus, the first generation of Geula. We're B'nai Geula. And so it's, which is my story. Like, I'm the last generation of Galus, and it's been a long haul, and I'm sick and tired of it, and it's enough, and this world, and this news, and this media, and like, it's just, it doesn't end, and it's totally true. And at the same time, there's this truth, and it's the deeper truth. It's that aleph of, I can choose to be in a personal gula right now.
So let me say that after you. There's no impatient people in my life. There are no critical people in my life. Everyone is wonderful. I love it. Everyone's just fantastic. Is there any aspect of this that's just like denial of reality?
Yeah. Meaning that's what Hakar Satov is. Like, it's recognizing the good. There's other parts of reality. I'm not focusing on those other parts of reality. There's the critical part of that person. And there's no critical people in my life. So I'm not focusing on that critical part of that person. Like, it's not denying it, meaning it's there, right? The first human reaction is going to be, oh my gosh, he is so critical. Like, that's going to be the first human response. But then it's that next moment is that, it's that breath. It's that choice.
How far could you take it? Because, like, Baruch Hashem, I actually do think I'm pretty blessed, and I'm surrounded by amazing people. So like, just like you and family and friends. And I really am like, I feel super lucky, but like, people have negative characteristics. Like, what do you mean? Like, okay, maybe critical, you try to find like people aren't perfect the same way I'm not perfect. So like, it almost feels like living in La La Land to be like, I'm only surrounded, you know what I mean? Like, I know
I love that
I'm pushing you, but like,
no, it's good. You're keeping
like, welcome to how real world is this? Like,
so this is, first of all, why we have a community that's dedicated to doing this together, because to do it on my own, it's an uphill battle. Meaning, like, if I'm going to choose to be in Gula and I want to show up that way in my marriage, and I want to show up that way in my relationships, and even in my self-talk, Like I have a commitment that I'm not mean to myself. Like that's my commitment. You know what I mean? Like I'm holding my selfie stand right now because I got home so late from a hike that my phone isn't charged and I have to hold it to the charger. And a voice in my head is like, Hannah, that is so irresponsible. What is wrong with you? And it's like, I'm committed to when that voice shows up saying, Hannah, I think you're so cool that you went on a hike and showed up last minute. Like,
I
do you know what I mean?
also think you're so cool that you went on a hike and that you live in a place where you can go on a hike.
And there were cows blocking the path, so I had to like hike through someone's backyard. It was like this epic adventure. I'm like, okay, this is a living in the moment experience right now. But yeah, so I think what are we talking about? La La Land. I mean, first of all, I'm not opposed to La La Land.
Oh, we
I,
could just live in La La Land.
I mean, it's a Shem's world. Like, I think that wait, well, sorry, what was exactly the question? I started thinking about the cows. Um,
No, like people actually have character defects. Like to sit and focus that everyone's beautiful and perfect, like seems like just a dream
okay,
world. But
yeah, so this is exactly the Sikha of Emor, where the Rebbe teaches us that it's really about learning about the laws of the Talmud Hacham according to the Rambam. Like, who is a Talmud Hacham and how do we distinguish them? Is that they only speak positively and not negatively at all. And through the whole pilpul, you come to reason that the reason it's a double language. If they only speak positively, of course they're not saying anything negative at all. No, it's because they only speak negatively, there's nothing, sorry, because they only speak positively, there's nothing negative left.
wow.
That's what their speech creates. And the Talmud Hacham is the most responsible person, meaning a person doesn't want to be neglectful, right? So I'm just going to not focus on all my husband's negative qualities and I'll just focus on the good. It feels neglectful. Like if you care about someone, you tell them, you know, like, hey, you got to be better with this kid, or hey, you got to make more money, or you have to do this or that. Like that's in a sense like just caring about someone, or you have to stop yelling or whatever the the serious default is, like whatever the perceived default is. And so you could think like, I don't want to be neglectful. I want it, if I care about you, I'm going to tell you. And yet the Talmud Hacham, the Torah scholar, is actually the most responsible for the community. And so he's not being neglectful. What is he doing? He's actively speaking positively to that person to the point that there's no negativity. And so it's that place of like, I could do this in the masculine way, of I could just call it out, or I could just avoid you, like I'm going to deal with it in a very straightforward way, or I could do it the feminine way, which is I am going to, I was like, oh, you're doing your mind tricks on me. Because I'll just go, he'll be like really stressed out, whatever. I'll be like, you're so calm. Thank you. I was like, oh, you're doing your mind tricks. But then he totally gets calm because he knows all the secrets. But it's really like in that space of like, I could say to him, like, why are you being so stressed out? It's such a small detail. Don't worry about it. Which is I'm just speaking to, something that I think is negative and it's really just kind of shaming and not helpful. Really not helpful. Or I could just say, thank you for being calm. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for being with me on this drive. Like.
Wait a second. What if someone feels like the person, again, you're speaking mostly in husband, but I'm expanding this conversation. The person really doesn't got your back. Like when you say thanks for having my back, that could actually make it a reality. That's basically what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yes. It is you're speaking to illuminate. You are illuminating that person's godly soul. So what that's doing is activating that part of them. And I do this with taxi drivers. Like seriously, like if I go to that space of why is this, oh, thank God, started driving, so I haven't taken a taxi in a while, but I really used to do this all the time. Like, why is this person speeding a million miles an hour? Like, do they not care about my life? Are they mashuga? Are they crazy? Like, hi, can you slow down? Versus just like thanking them, like thinking in my mind, they're such a good driver, they're such a careful driver, they change lanes so safely. And even if I'm not saying it out loud, but I'm just shifting that focus, I've seen it's seen it go down 20 miles an hour. Like just that space. Or it doesn't affect me in the same way. Because before it was this person who doesn't care about my life and they're just driving down like a crazy person down the highway. And now I just created this environment where like I actually feel safe. So either the thing shifts or I shift. But
Either the thing shifts or I shift. So either way, it's going to work. Either the reality will change or I will change, and therefore I could accept the reality even though it doesn't change.
yeah.
Somebody wrote in the comments, it's a lot like looking in the mirror and being resonant and reflected of Hashem within us and others.
Oh man. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. So I really love this. I love this idea, and it's really what we were saying before about being present is taking the most spiritual concept of God and Hashem recreating every single moment. It's almost like we have an aspect of godliness, just like God spoke the world into being. Like we get to speak and almost like model after Hashem. We can speak positivity into existence. It's so powerful when you think about it. I could like speak positivity into existence. It's great. I feel like even if that's just like the one takeaway I take from this, it's like, yeah, even students, children, family members, everyone, like speak MR, like speak the positivity, even when it least feels like it. Just be like, say all the positive things you want to see.
Mm,
Now, you know what's interesting? Sometimes it feels like you have more control over the outcome when you get angry. Like if I scream at that taxi driver, excuse me, what are you thinking? Hello, blah, blah, blah. Then they're going to take me more seriously. It seems to be more effective even sometimes. Like, how do you get yourself to a place to see that actually it's more impactful this way than the other way?
mm. I first just want to say that I love that you took that to the place of your students because it's so powerful, like with children and in the work you do. Like that's so powerful. And actually, in the Sikha, it's the Rebbe brings the example of the hazir, like to warn your children, like in Zoev Chanef is actually the hazir, like to make shine through this work. And so I love that you brought it there. And I think that this is a great point. And this is really comes down to there's masculine power and there's feminine power. And they're both great and got to use both in a day, you know? But really, like the idea, like that masculinity that we all have inside of us is like, I'm taking control, I'm taking charge. And it's going to be, that aggressive energy of like, no, I'm putting my foot down, like, and then there's the feminine energy, which is I'm going to nurture the situation. Like, this is going to be like nurturing the light inside of it. Like, that's literally what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use like, it's kind of like the bodyguard outside versus the security system. Like, the security system with all the cameras is way more advanced technology, but you see the security guard. So the masculine energy is like, they've taken control that I can see, versus the feminine energy is actually way more advanced of a technology, but it takes longer. But in truth, I think what really does it for me is that whenever I see myself taking control in that very like aggressive, controlling, fear-based way, I just kind of like see a clock, like a sand clock going down. Like, let's see how long that change lasts. And it doesn't last long at all. Like, it just absolutely goes. Versus when I nurture it and I own the fact that I'm a woman and I was given this ability to tap into this femininity, and what the Rebbe was inviting everyone to, like man and woman alike, is like this feminine ability to nurture other people with our words. It changes the person themselves. It's empowering that person. And the Rebbe brings there that, if lashon hara can kill three people, the speaker, the one who is spoken about, and the listener, right? Why is it killing the person who was spoken about? They didn't do anything. Like, let that person live, because it negatively affects that person whether they were there or not. And so too for the positive, right? If I can speak positively about someone, even when they're not there, it's gonna grant that life. And so I think for myself, like just seeing, like whenever I try, sorry, I have one the filter for my brain is usually marriage. So like when I go to that space of like, I'm going to try to control my husband, like I'm going to change his habit, I'm going to change the way he speaks to me about the subject so I can make a whole speech and be very right. I can even say it gently, but the energy is controlling. I'm going to enforce my vision for this onto you. I'm going to tell you on your Dalit Amos how you should show up. It doesn't last, and it kind of just breeds resentment because no one likes being controlled. Versus when I actually like find out the positive intent of where my husband's coming from and what's actually going on here, and like figure out for my own Dalit Amos, like what's my avoda. Usually it's not to control. Usually it's to let go or to express a desire or to receive something deeper or control what I can, which is myself and my thought, speech, and action. Then, like you were saying before, then things can actually shift and shift in a very real way. I'll just give you a simple example.
I got my license in Israel not too long ago, and it was a whole thing transferring it. It was too big of a journey for a license. Thank you. You're so sweet. I'm just seeing maybe I could show you some sunset vibes are happening there. There we go. And so, you know, my husband watching me learn how to park was like so painful for him. He's like, this is torturous. And every single time we get in the car to park, like we'd have a great drive, great highway drive. I'm like feeling so good about myself. I'm doing this, and come to park, and I just was made to like feel like a toddler. Like I just was like, he was yelling at me. It was so stressful. And when I finally, and every time I'm like, stop it, this is so mean. I can't think, I can't breathe. I can't even listen to your parallel parking advice right now. Like I'm so stressed out. And it would just be this fight. And after like a good few weeks of this, I was like, okay, me telling him that this is not when I want him to teach me how to park, like when we're parking, that's not working. So like, what's gonna shift? Like, okay, it's gonna be me. And so I just tapped into, okay, well, he wants to help me, and he definitely feels bad for me that it's hard. And why is he so determined to teach me how to parallel park, even though it's so frustrating for him? Oh, because he loves me, and he knows I go out without him, and he wants to make sure that like life is easy for me, and doesn't want me to be left without like a basic skill. And once I was able to just like receive that, every single time he started, I would just say like, thank you for helping me right now, and being able to be like, thank you for explaining this to me, versus explain it slower, explain it softer, you know, just being able to be in that place of not responding to the outward aggressive or that masculine energy, but actually responding to that parts that are so beautiful. Thank you for caring about me, being so passionate about teaching me something. And thank God, within like a few days after that, like I learned and it was fine, you know? But it was like the challenge wouldn't go away until until Hashem helped me like receive what was being given there. So someone could say, you know, what a jerk, that's so mean, why is he yelling at you? And like they'd be right, you know, in that moment. Or it could be geula of like, what an amazing husband who's so determined to help me learn something that's important, even when it's frustrating for him. Like it's the same situation, it's just that choice.
The MR. Wow. This has
Emma.
been so enlightening, so beautiful. Thank you so, so much, Chana. Thank you, everyone who joined and watched. I definitely have a lot of thoughts to process, and I really, really, really appreciate it. You could all follow Chana either on Gula Wives or on, I think that's where she hangs out these days. Uh, yeah, and we could all help each other to bask in the joy of being present, of recognizing that God recreating us every single second, and recognizing our power to transform ourselves and those around us. So thank you, thank you, thank you.